Especially in this front area, we need to make sure to maintain this corner so that it's the same length here as it is back here. When we do that, and to preserve that length, what we need to remember is that a face frame should never be any farther back into the foundation of the cut than in front of the ear. If you take it behind the ear, you're looking at taking out this whole corner, and then your length will be shorter up here than it is back here. Thus, it will make the U shape or the roundness that she had before. And it will compromise the actual foundation of the hair. To preserve that, what I've done is I comb everything down at 0 degrees, and then I bring it back this way. I will over direct it, and then I will remove that length as it's needed. And now we can get started on her layers. All right, so what I'm doing now, instead of starting the layers in the back, like traditionally we're taught to start the layers, I'm gonna start them on the top. What that does, by starting the layers at the top, it's going to help to maintain the length through that foundation. What happened with Carly's hair before, we saw that it was very shattered on the ends, and a lot of that has to do with all the layers being cut between the crown and the occipital as opposed to at the crown and above. When we cut the layers within the horseshoe subsection of the hair, what it helps to do is everything cascades over and it just softly whispers through, as opposed to it being too shattered and then possibly too short. Her previous layers, as you can see, somebody's gone in and they've done a lot of texturizing or thinning shear or gone in with the shears and really whispered through it. And what that's done is it's left her with no control whatsoever on those ends. And with curly hair, you have to have control, because if you don't, it gets frizzy. So we're gonna go in, use a very soft wrist at a forward diagonal angle. The hair is up, therefore the blade is up, and it's pointed at me. I have more fluidity and flexibility with my wrist when it's like this, okay? We're going to remove this much length off of hers. We really want to give her some nice fluid layers. If you notice, my wrist is moving quite a bit. However, my hand is not moving. I am layering her hair, therefore my hand is stationary. In a minute, we will be doing graduation, therefore my hand will be moving. As I said, soft. It's not too blunt like what we've done with the foundation. However, it has a firmness to it, and you can see the definite line. We can use 3 subsections within the horseshoe subsection. Her hair is getting dry. I'm starting to actually have to put the razor through the hair as opposed to whisper the razor through the hair and let it do the job. So we're going to moisten it a little bit with our Blade Glide, which is a pharmaceutical grade silicone. We prepped her hair with it before, but now we need to go ahead and moisten it again. For those of y'all that like to have a guide, we can see the guide. Okay. Now we're going to move to the other side. Once again, we need to moisten it a little bit because I think it's going to be too dry on those ends. You can see it's a nice fine mist. It will not impede your product line. Hair is up, blade is up. Softly whisper through the hair. It doesn't take any aggression on your part to cut with a nice sharp blade and on wet hair. When your hair is too dry or not wet enough, you're going to have to push on the hair, which in turn is going to give you the wrong angle on it, and it's going to rip it and break it and tear it, and then the hair is going to split, and or it's going to be uncomfortable for your client as she sits through the haircut. If you notice, I am palming my razor, especially when you're working with long hair. You want to make sure that you palm the razor back. What happens is, if you palm it like a pair of shears, you're going to be combing through, and when we comb through with the razor held like this, you can get extra texture and hair starts falling on the ground, and we've all done it. However, it's not a good idea. So let's palm our razors. We can start to see how her layers are softly whispered through the back, but they're not real blunt. This is not the haircut for the client that comes in and asks for 3 layers, 1, 2, and 3. That's not gonna work at all here. We just want it to softly whisper through and to be easy. All right, so we've cut that top area. We're starting to see more of that S formation in the way that the hair is falling. Now we're going to go in and blend the top horseshoe subsection into the rest of the length, being very careful to preserve the foundation of that cut that we put in earlier. The way that I like to do this is to work from the high point of the head, right up here. If you're not sure how to find the high point, put the comb on the top of the head, and wherever it teeter-totters off of is the high point of the head. We're going to comb it out. I like to use radial pie subsections, which means we're working off the high point of the head in a radius like a pie. We're just gonna go around this way on the top of the head. Comb that out of the way. We see the length that we cut a few minutes ago. Pull this straight out. We're gonna go from this shortness here down into our length. It's a good idea not to use any more of a subsection than the length of your hair. I'm sorry, of your fingers, not the hair, because it'd be a really long subsection. All right, we're gonna go in. If you notice now, the way that I'm holding the blade, it's down. However, I have to hold it more like this to really be able to go in and slice through the hair and cut the rest of its layers. So what I'm doing now is I'm going through and I'm using my wrist this way. If she were a little bit lower, we would be going in and going this way. We're gonna comb this hair out of the way. It's cut. Go from the high point of the head. Once again, it's going from a very small pie subsection at the top of the head down to the bottom, which is probably a good inch to inch and a half wide in diameter. We see our shortness here, and we're gonna go in and cut this way. If you notice, my fingers are moving as I cut, and that is intentional because I want to go from shortest to longest. This is graduation. When you graduate, your fingers move. When you layer, your fingers do not move. I'm not pulling a guide. My guide at this point is the length at the crown that we cut, and then also our foundation. Those are my 2 guide points, because we're blending and marrying those 2 together. I see my short point again, going in, using a nice soft wrist. Even though her hair is curly, you can still have a little bit softer edge. However, it has a firmness to it. If you'll notice, I'm only taking this subsection to right at the middle of her ear, because remember, this is pretty much her face frame area, and this is also her fringe that we're getting ready to detail and design for her. Now, let's look at the difference between the 2 sides as far as how her layers and her curl is lying. This one is nice and fluid. It moves well. This one is still a little bit heavy. See how the whole section kind of moves? Whereas this one, you move here and everything moves, but it goes in a nice S formation. Just continuing in radius pi subsections around the head. We have 2 more subsections, and then we're going to have some fun with a little bit of weight release specifically for curly hair. It can be done in straight hair, but it's a lot more successful in curly. Let's check the length. I think it's still a little long right here. A little bit square. All right. Her hair is much thicker and more dense on this side than it is on this side. So we're gonna remove weight specifically for each side. But we can see how her curl is already behaving totally different than what it did before. I'm really liking what I see. All right, now, it's not really necessary to have it completely damp. However, I want to see where the thick areas and the finer areas of the hair are. Kind of shake your hands through it. Get the curl to kind of trundle together as opposed to being separated. When you're combing the hair with the fine edge of the